All right, everyone. Ready to dive into some technical SEO?
Always ready for some SEO fun.
Today, we're using, let me check my notes, 2024 Q2 Technical SEO Optimization Guide, v2.pdf.
Ah,
You know,
that's a good one. It's a little dense, though.
it's a dense guide.
Yeah.
We're going to break it down into like the most important things that you need to know.
You need to know stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some really cool things like discoverability, crawlability, and indexability.
The big three.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah.
So by the end of this deep dive, you're going to be armed with all the technical SEO knowledge you need to get your website in tip-top shape.
Absolutely. It's about making sure your website is not only beautiful, but also functional from the inside out.
Perfect. So first things first, let's define technical SEO. What is it?
In a nutshell, it's all the behind-the-scenes stuff that makes your website work seamlessly with search engines.
Okay, so it's kind of like the engine of a car. You can't see it, but
Yeah.
it makes the whole thing run.
Precisely. And just like a well-tuned engine helps a car perform at its best, good technical SEO helps your website rank higher, attract more organic traffic, and ultimately reach a wider audience.
Gotcha. So this guide breaks it down into 4 key pillars: discoverability, crawlability, indexability, and user experience.
Yeah, think of these as the foundation of your website's success.
Kind of like building a house. You need a solid foundation before you start decorating, right?
Absolutely.
So starting with discoverability, this is all about making sure search engines can actually find your pages, right?
Right. It's step one. Can Google even see your content?
So how do we make sure they can?
Well, first things first, a logical site architecture. This is where things like topic clusters and pillar pages come in.
Okay, so topic clusters, what are those?
Imagine organizing a library. You have different sections: fiction, nonfiction, history. Each of those is like a topic cluster on your website.
And then pillar pages, are those kind of like the big signs above each section?
Exactly. Pillar pages give a broad overview of a topic, while other pages in that cluster dive deeper into specific aspects.
I'm with you. So like if my website's about coffee, I might have a topic cluster for brewing methods with a pillar page that gives an overview of different brewing styles.
Perfect example. And within that cluster, you'd have individual pages on French press, pour over, espresso, you name it.
Ah, okay. So it's all about creating this like hierarchy of information.
Exactly. Makes it easy for users to navigate and for search engines to understand what your site's about.
Now, the guide also mentioned internal links as a key part of discoverability. So those are links from one page on my site to another page on my site, right?
Yep, that's it, not to external websites.
Okay, so why are those so important?
Well, for users, internal links create a seamless browsing experience. They can jump from one relevant piece of content to the next, keeping them engaged and on your site longer.
That makes sense.
But internal links also play a huge role in SEO. They help search engines understand the relationship between different pages and identify which ones are the most important.
So like if I have a page about espresso and I link to it from my brewing methods pillar page, that tells Google, hey, this espresso page is pretty important.
Exactly. And where you place those links on the page actually matters.
Oh, really? So like a link at the top of a page carries more weight than a link buried down at the bottom.
You got it. It's about visibility and user behavior.
Okay, makes sense.
People tend to focus on the top of a page first, and Google recognizes that. So those top place links get more attention, both from users and search engines.
So I shouldn't just throw all my important links down in the footer, huh?
Probably not the most strategic move.
Mm.
Think about where you want to guide users and what content you want to emphasize.
Right. Okay, so site architecture and internal links, check. What about website navigation? I read in the guide about primary navigation, secondary navigation, breadcrumbs. A lot to think about.
It can be, but the core idea is pretty simple. Make it easy for users to find their way around your site.
Intuitive, right?
Exactly. Primary navigation is your main menu. Think the big categories at the top of your site. Secondary navigation might be more specific menus or links within those categories. And breadcrumbs? Well, they show users where they are within the site's structure, kind of like a trail of digital comes.
So good navigation is good for users and good for SEO.
Exactly. A happy user is more likely to stick around, explore your site, and maybe even convert.
All right, now let's talk about XML sitemaps. What are they?
An XML sitemap is basically a blueprint of your website that you give to search engines. It lists all your important pages, even those that might be hidden deeper in your site's structure.
So it's like saying, hey, search engines, don't miss these pages.
Exactly. It just makes it easier for them to discover and crawl your site, especially if you have a lot of content or a complex structure.
Okay, and what about index now? I saw that mentioned in the guide too.
Index Now takes it a step further. Instead of waiting for search engines to find your new content organically, you can actively notify them about it.
So it's like, hey, check this out. I just published something awesome.
Yep, it helps speed up the indexing process.
Wow, lots of ways to make sure search engines are in the loop, huh? So we've covered making our content discoverable, but how do we make sure search engines can actually get to it and explore it properly?
That, my friend, is the realm of crawlability.
All right, crawlability. It sounds kind of creepy.
Yeah, well, it's not as scary as it sounds.
Okay, good. So what is it then?
Think of it like having a well-organized house. You want your guests to be able to move around easily, right?
Yeah, nobody wants a guest getting lost in their house.
Exactly. Crawlability is all about making sure search engine bots, those little digital guests, can smoothly navigate through your website.
Okay, so no dead ends or confusing hallways.
Exactly. The easier it is for them to crawl your site, the faster they can index your content and, show it to the world.
Right, makes sense. So how do we make sure our website is easy to crawl? The guide mentioned something about SEO-friendly URLs.
Ah, yes, URLs. They matter more than people think.
So what makes a URL SEO-friendly then?
Well, for starters, they should be clear, concise, and descriptive.
You mean like using real words instead of just random numbers and symbols?
Exactly. Think of it like this. Would you rather read a book title that tells you what it's about or just see a random barcode?
Yeah, the book title for sure. I want to know what I'm getting into.
Right. It's the same with URLs. Both users and search engines should be able to understand what a page is about just by looking at the URL.
Okay, that makes sense. So clear and descriptive URLs, check. What about this thing called crawl budget?
Ah, yes, crawl budget is a limited resource.
Like money. Should I be worried about going bankrupt?
Huh? No. It's not about actual money.
Okay, good. So what is it then?
It's the number of pages Googlebot, the search engine bot, will crawl on your website in a given time period. Think of it like your website's time in the spotlight. You want to make sure Googlebot is spending its time on your most important pages, not wasting it on, let's say, duplicate content or pages that don't really matter.
Oh, okay. So what are some of those like crawl budget wasters I should be aware of?
Well, duplicate content, for one. It's like having multiple copies of the same book in a library. Just takes up space and confuses everyone.
Right. So make sure each page has unique content. What else?
Slow-loading pages are another big culprit.
Yeah, I hate when websites take forever to load.
Exactly. And so do search engines. If a page takes too long to load, Googlebot might just give up and move on. Plus, users get frustrated too.
True. Anything else I should watch out for?
Broken links can also be a problem. They're like dead ends for Googlebot, leading them nowhere. And then there are things like crawler traps.
Crawler traps, what are those?
Think of it like an infinite loop. Googlebot gets stuck crawling the same pages over and over again, wasting its crawl budget and missing out on your important content.
Okay, that definitely sounds like something I want to avoid. How do I make sure that doesn't happen?
Regular website audits are key. You got to check for broken links, identify any potential crawl traps, and make sure your site is structured in a way that makes sense for both users and search engines.
Sounds like I need to do some spring cleaning on my website.
Think of it as ongoing maintenance. Keep things tidy, and you'll be good to go.
Okay, so we've talked about URLs, crawl budget, crawler traps. What else do we need to know about crawlability?
Well, we can't forget about duplicate content. It's a bigger deal than a lot of people realize.
Right, you mentioned that before.
Yeah, it's a major crawlability issue. When search engines encounter the same content on multiple pages, they get confused about which one to index and rank.
So what's the best way to handle duplicate content?
Well, the ideal scenario is to avoid creating it in the first place.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True, but if you do have duplicate content, you can use canonical tags to tell search engines which version is the original. It's like saying, hey, Google, this is the one that matters.
So you're telling them which page to prioritize.
Yeah.
Got it. Is there anything else that impacts crawlability?
Absolutely. Site speed. It's not just about user experience. It also affects how well search engines can crawl your site.
Right. I remember you saying Google considers site speed a ranking factor.
Exactly. The faster your site loads, the smoother the crawling experience for Googlebot, and the better your chances of ranking well.
So what can I do to speed up my website?
Lots of things. You can optimize images, enable browser caching, minify your code. It's like giving your website a tune-up.
So it's about making sure everything is running smoothly under the hood. Okay, so we've covered discoverability and crawlability. Now, how do we make sure search engines can actually understand what they're crawling and add it to their index?
That, my friend, is where indexability comes in.
Indexability, that sounds important.
It is. This is where we make sure search engines can not only crawl our content, but also understand it.
So it's like they've come to the library, they found the right section, but can they actually read and understand the books?
Exactly. Indexability is about making our content clear, organized, and easy for search engines to digest.
So how do we do that? The guide mentioned something called schema markup. What is that all about?
Schema markup is kind of like adding labels to the items in your house.
Okay, so instead of just seeing a random object, they see like couch or table or lamp.
You got it. It's like giving search engines a little extra information so they can be like, ah, okay, this is a product page and this is a blog post.
Makes sense. So schema markup is like the secret code that helps search engines understand our content better.
You could say that. It's not really a secret, though. It's a standardized language that anyone can use.
Okay, cool. So schema markup helps with indexability. What else should we be thinking about?
Well, we need to be mindful of how we use JavaScript.
Right, I remember you mentioning that before. JavaScript can be tricky for search engines.
Yeah, it can be. While search engines are getting better at understanding JavaScript, it's still not as straightforward as plain HTML.
So what's the problem with using JavaScript?
It's not that JavaScript itself is bad, it's more about how you use it. If you're hiding important content within complex JavaScript code, search engines might have a hard time accessing and understanding it.
So it's like, I don't know, putting the instructions for a recipe inside a lockbox.
Yeah.
The information's there, but it's not very accessible.
Exactly. Make sure your important content is easy to find and understand, even if you're using JavaScript to enhance the user experience.
Gotcha. So use JavaScript strategically. What else should we consider for indexability?
The guide talked about the reflying attribute. It's important for websites that target multiple languages and regions.
Ah, right. So if my website has versions in English, Spanish, and French, reflying helps search engines know which version to show to users in each country.
Exactly. It's all about creating a seamless experience for your international audience.
Okay, so reflang, happy global visitors. What else can we do to boost indexability?
Don't underestimate the power of headings.
You mean like H1, H2, H3 tags?
Yep, those are the ones.
But aren't headings more about visual organization? How do they affect indexability?
Well, they do help organize your content visually, which is great for users. But headings also provide a structural hierarchy that search engines can understand.
So it's like giving them an outline of the content.
Exactly. Using a clear H1 for the main topic, followed by H2s and H3s for subheadings, makes it easy for search engines to grasp the main points and index your page accordingly.
Okay, so headings. Good for readability, good for SEO. Got it.
Got it.
Now, what about canonicalization? That one sounds a little intimidating.
It's not as scary as it sounds. Remember how we talked about the dangers of duplicate content?
Yeah, that's a no-no for SEO.
Canonical tags are like a little note you leave for search engines telling them which version of a page is the original or canonical one.
So if I have different versions of a page, like one for mobile and one for desktop, a canonical tag tells Google which one to index.
Precisely. It helps prevent any confusion about which version is the most authoritative.
Canonical tags. Keeping duplicate content in check. Love it. Now let's talk about our final pillar, user experience.
This one might seem a bit out of place in a conversation about technical SEO, but it's becoming more and more important.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how it all ties together.
It's all about creating a website that is not only accessible to search engines, but also enjoyable for humans to use.
So if my website is slow, confusing, or just plain ugly, that's going to hurt my SEO.
It can definitely play a role. Google wants to provide its users with the best possible experience, and part of that is making sure websites are easy to use and navigate.
So good UX equals happy users equals better rankings. Makes sense.
Exactly. And Google has even created a set of metrics called Core Web Vitals to measure key aspects of user experience.
Core Web Vitals, I've heard of those. They're all about page speed, interactivity, and visual stability, right?
Yeah, you got it. Google actually uses these metrics as ranking factors.
Wow. So optimizing for Core Web Vitals is like a double win. It makes your website better for users and improves your SEO.
Exactly. And there are tons of resources available online to help you improve your Core Web Vitals scores.
Awesome. And we can't forget about accessibility. It's crucial for creating a truly inclusive website.
Absolutely. Making sure your website is accessible to people with disabilities isn't just the right thing to do, it's also good for SEO.
So it's about creating a website that everyone can enjoy, regardless of their abilities.
Exactly. And it often leads to a better user experience for everyone.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from discoverability to crawlability, indexability, and user experience, it's amazing how all these pieces fit together to create a website that truly shines.
It's all connected. And by understanding these principles and using the tools and resources mentioned in the guide, anyone can start optimizing their website for success.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of technical SEO. We hope you learned a thing or two and are ready to put this knowledge into action.
And remember, SEO is an ongoing journey, so keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep those websites optimized.
Until next time, happy optimizing everyone.